The rain hadn't stopped all morning. It tapped against the tall windows of the little roadside diner like a soft reminder that the world outside was cold, gray, and impatient. Inside, however, warmth radiated from more than just the coffee machines. It came from laughter, kindness, and the simple comfort of strangers sitting down to a hot meal. Among the crowd, seated quietly at a corner booth, was a man in a dark tailored coat and a little boy in a wheelchair. The boy, no older than 8, had big brown eyes, a gentle smile, and stiff hands that trembled when he tried to hold a spoon. "Dad, I'm trying, but it's hard," he whispered. His father, Nolan Prescott, CEO of Prescott Holdings and one of the richest men on the East Coast, watched helplessly. For all the empires he had built, all the business deals he'd won, he couldn't help his son hold a spoon steady. Liam had cerebral palsy, and Nolan was still learning how to be a father to a boy who needed more than money. He needed patience, attention, time. Things Nolan hadn't had much of before tragedy changed everything. 2 years ago, Nolan had been too busy to even come home for dinner. Then came the accident, his wife, Evelyn, hit by a drunk driver on the way to Liam's therapy session. She died on impact. Liam survived, but the damage to his nervous system had already been done. Since then, Nolan had pulled away from the public eye, taking time away from his billion-dollar empire to raise his son. But he often wondered if he was doing it right. As Liam struggled with his soup, a young waitress approached. She had a name tag that read Maya. She was probably in her late 20s, wearing a worn apron and a ponytail that had started to unravel from a long shift. Nolan expected the usual polite smile and maybe a refill. But instead, Maya crouched down beside Liam and gently said, "Hey, champ, want some help?" Liam looked up, hesitant, then nodded. Maya sat beside him and, with the gentleness of someone who understood fragility, helped guide the spoon to his mouth. She didn't rush. She didn't treat him like he was broken. She chatted with him, asked about his favorite cartoons, what superheroes he liked, what food he wished he could eat on his own. Nolan sat in stunned silence, watching her. No one had ever done that, not like this. Not without pity, or awkwardness, or forced sympathy. Just kindness. Pure, simple kindness. When Maya left to tend to another table, Nolan found himself watching her. She moved with the quiet exhaustion of someone who worked 2 jobs. He could see it in the small tear on her shoes, the way her shoulder sagged ever so slightly with each plate she carried. There was a story there. And something about her tugged at a part of Nolan's heart he hadn't opened in a long time. Over the next hour, Nolan and Liam sat there longer than they needed to. Maya returned to check in several times, not just out of duty but genuine care. When they finally stood to leave, Nolan placed a folded bill under the coffee cup. Maya went to clear the table and opened the fold, expecting a 10 or 20. It was $500. She rushed out to the parking lot, the rain drizzling again. "Sir. Sir. You left this." Nolan turned, umbrella shielding Liam's wheelchair. "I meant to." Maya hesitated. I can't take this." "Really?" Nolan looked at her, eyes steady. "You didn't just help my son eat. You reminded me that kindness still exists in this world. And it's worth more than any stock I've ever owned." She didn't know what to say. But he smiled, and added, "Would you consider coming by our home sometimes? Just a few hours a week." Liam doesn't respond like that to many people. She blinked. "You want to hire me? I want you to be part of something more than just this diner." Weeks passed, and Maya began visiting the Prescott estate twice a week. It was nothing like she expected. Not some cold marble mansion, but a warm home where Liam had art projects on the walls and giggles in the air. She played board games with him, helped him with his speech exercises, and became the one face he lit up for besides his father. But Maya had her own battles. She was a single mom too, though her son, Alex, was in foster care temporarily. She had been in an abusive relationship, and when she left, she had no job and no support system. Social services took Alex until she could prove she could provide. Every dollar she earned went toward fighting to get him back. Nolan eventually learned this. One evening, as Maya was leaving, he saw her lingering by her old car, shoulders hunched, face in her hands. He approached quietly. "Are you okay?" he asked. She wiped her face quickly. "Yeah. Just tired." Nolan didn't push. But the next day, he asked her to come into his office at the estate. She walked in nervously, expecting to be let go. Instead, Nolan slid a folder toward her. Inside was a letter from a family law attorney, paperwork to help Maya regain custody of her son, and a check for $25,000. "I don't want charity," she whispered, tearing up. "It's not charity," Nolan said softly. "It's gratitude." Months passed, and life began to shift. Maya regained custody of Alex. She moved into a small apartment near the Prescotts. Nolan officially hired her full-time, not as a caretaker, but as Liam's personal development aide. Eventually, she enrolled in a night program to become a certified pediatric therapist. Nolan sponsored it. He said it was an investment in someone who had already changed 2 lives. As time went on, something beautiful began to blossom between them. Not fast, not dramatic, but tender. Liam, once reserved and dependent, began standing with support. He painted pictures that Maya proudly framed. And Nolan, he laughed more. He found reasons to stay home. He watched Maya with Alex and Liam, and saw a future he never thought he'd want again. One afternoon, Liam stood holding onto Nolan's hand, looking up at Maya. "Are you gonna be my new mommy?" he asked innocently. Maya's eyes widened. Nolan laughed, then looked at her with that same quiet warmth. "Only if she wants to be," he said. Maya smiled, tears glimmering. And in that small moment, under the soft glow of a quiet afternoon sun, a billionaire, a waitress, and 2 boys with hearts full of hope discovered what it truly meant to be a family. Inspiration message. True kindness doesn't ask for anything in return, but sometimes, it returns everything you've ever needed. One simple act of compassion can rewrite a future. So be kind. Always. You never know whose life you're changing, especially your own.